Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 30 of the OK Listen Here Roundtable. I am your host, Dawson Haywood. Today, I am joined by the greatest sports mind that I know, the great Philip Pilkington, who just had a birthday yesterday. Philip, happy late birthday. Happy belated birthday. 26 years old and killing the game, dude. How'd you celebrate? What'd you do?
Well, with work, but thank you, by the way. And then me and my friends went to Texas Roadhouse and then had a couple drinks at a friend's house and came back here and had a couple more. Got, just enough of a buzz going that, would be worried if I was the one driving, but I wasn't. And then, went to bed, had a good night's sleep, and got up and went back to work this morning and covered American Athletic Conference Media Days. So,
I forgot that was going on today or yesterday. But yeah, it seems like the older we get, Philip, the more boring our birthdays get. 26. You're 26 years old, so we're no longer 21 anymore. We got responsibilities to tend to. But before we get into the meat of this episode is brought to you by the OK Listen Here Premium blog. Elevate your fan experience with the OK Listen Here Premium blog for $5 a month. Unlock the gateway to exclusive, in-depth analyses of your cherished teams, unfiltered opinions, and exciting giveaways. Don't miss out. Visit oklistenhere.com today to sign up. Philip, it has been a very eventful last 2 weeks in the realm of sports, and more specifically, college football fans finally got their beloved College Football 25 to come out. Philip, have you had a minute to take a look at the game, play it all? I know I saw you on Snapchat the other day. I saw someone playing as the Sooners in your apartment or somewhere the other day, but have you had the chance to play it?
yeah, I have. I was at my friend's place down in Atlanta, and we were playing some games before we went over to the Braves game. So yeah, I've had a chance to play it. It's fun. I don't love the sign that says East California at ECU Stadium or the fact that they say touchdown Purple Pirates. But
Oh, dude,
other than
that's
that, other than that, it's been good so far. Still trying to get the hang of it. I got to get used back to the kind of the college quarterbacks. They don't throw picks quite like they did in the other games, but definitely not the NFL quarterbacks. I've noticed when I throw bullet passes, it still kind of happens in the next window. It doesn't get quite as quick as it does there in Madden. So, still trying to get figured out, but enjoyed it a lot. What about you?
have you done a dynasty or anything like that at all?
I mean, I'm just playing like I wanted to get the recruiting and the gameplay figured out, so I'm doing Duke right now, but it's just one season, and then I'm gonna find a Power Five team to rebuild. Um, I think one day I do want to start with a small team and be a coach, and then try and work my way up. But I feel like taking over Kennesaw State and being the best team in CUSA wouldn't be that hard. Instead, I'm thinking about taking over a crappy team in a really good conference and seeing if I can compete with the Alabamas of the world,
So what I'm hearing is you're going to take over for Vanderbilt.
something like that. Yeah.
So yeah, for me, I started off day one as the offensive coordinator. Well, actually, let me back up a little bit. Want to give a huge shout out to the EA team who just first and foremost built a beautiful game. Back in whenever they announced that they weren't making another game, they were like a year or two off of UNC Charlotte being in the FBS, and so as a kid, never got to play as UNC Charlotte, and so I had waited for 10, 11 years to play as UNC Charlotte, and that was the first game that I played. I was the 49ers. I played Middle Tennessee State. I don't know what the score was, but I do know that I lost that first game. It's definitely a learning curve, but I was very happy to hop in there and play as UNCC, and it just feels you almost feel like you're watching it on TV. I mean, they have the fight songs and they're holding up their pickaxes and everything, and it's awesome. Um, Other than that, started off a dynasty as the OC at Kennesaw State. Got the job at Tulsa, won a national championship, and then the next year, for whatever reason, no conference games were scheduled. So there was a bit of a glitch in the system. I know they're addressing it. So I deleted that dynasty. I'd already accomplished a national championship, so why start over? Why not? So started as the OC at UNC Charlotte, and at the end of the season finished 11-1, I think. Yeah, it was 11-1. Won the American. Had a Heisman. Had the best quarterback. Had the best running back, and the head coach won Coach of the Year, and ended up losing the first round of playoffs. And the head coach left, and they did not hire me for head coach. So I got pissed off and decided to sign as the head coach for East Carolina, who I played for,
Hey,
who I played against in the American Conference. And so I had an offer to go to the number one team in the country, who's Louisville in my dynasty, but I declined it because I wanted to be ECU and stick it to UNC Charlotte. So
there you go.
I am currently in my first season as a head coach. I've only played one game, beat Ohio State in my first game, number 3 Ohio State, dude. I'm telling you, and I'm not afraid to admit I have put in. I looked yesterday. Philip, I want you to guess how many hours that I had put into this game so far. Be mindful. I just told you that I have completed 3 full seasons. That doesn't count for head-to-head matchups or anything like that. Doesn't account for recruiting. So how many hours do you think I have in this game so far?
87.
Okay, that's a bit much. No. Cut that by about half. I had 45
My original
hours.
guess was going to be like 42, and then you were like 3 full seasons. I was like, well, if it takes damn near an hour to play each game, but like it takes an hour to do a week between game and recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking, I was thinking you'd played 3 full years. Oh, yeah, so be about 40 something.
Yeah, so 45 years or 45 hours as of yesterday. So, but now you're Xbox, aren't you?
PlayStation.
Your PlayStation?
Yeah.
Oh, Philip, we got to start an online dynasty, bro. Me and you. We got to get one
here's
going.
The one thing I've avoided. Here's the one thing I've avoided is online dynasties, and the biggest reason is because like I'll go like 3 months without turning my PlayStation on.
That's fair.
Yeah, I don't want to like be that
you've
guy.
never been like a big gamer. I know that for a
haven't.
fact.
Yeah, I haven't. Like I'll go through spells where I'll play for a good amount. Boy, I say a spell, I mean, it lasts like 10 days, and then I won't play. And that's why I haven't wanted to get in anybody's online dynasty, is because it's like, especially when college football comes around, like I'll play like one game a week, and then I'll just
Yeah.
be.
Hey,
I mean, I'm working in sport. I work and
that's
watch
all
so
you
many
need, Phil.
sports.
One game a week.
No, no. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. It ain't MLB, the show. You don't have to play 7.
No, that's facts. But I think EA did a beautiful job with this game, and I will probably play a game as soon as we hop off of this podcast. But speaking of college football,
Great. I'm gonna go to bed.
Yeah, you got to get up early. I got to wake up at like 9 o'clock and mosey my way over to Top Golf for for my day job. So
Yeah, I got to get up
that.
watching the Olympics.
There you go. Well, speaking of college football, the first Saturday of college football is back a week from tomorrow. Today, if you are listening on July 24th, or is that technically week 0? I think it's week 0.
That'd be week 0, yeah.
Yeah, so no real like big major games out, but hey, college football is there. Looking at the schedule, we got Hawaii, Delaware State, Georgia Tech, Florida State, which is just the biggest game.
Is that the one in Dublin? There's one game in Dublin, right?
The Erlingus College Football Classic. So you tell me. Here, I'll tell you. Yes. Georgia Tech versus Florida State in Dublin. And then you got New Mexico, Montana State, Nevada, and SMU. And then, of course, that is on a Saturday. And then games continue on Thursday. So, Philip, are you looking forward to anything this season? I know you'll be following the Pirates pretty closely. I'm sorry that it's not Dawson Haywood's ECU Pirates who are going to win like 20 national championships, assuming Oklahoma doesn't offer me a job. But what are you looking forward to the most? Don't y'all kick off the season with NC State or end the season with NC State?
Yeah, that's next year. We start with NC State.
Oh, gotcha.
This year we start with Norfolk State or something like that. I don't even know.
Yeah,
I'll do the research for it's an FCS team. I'll start doing my research on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, you're always looking forward to a new season, but when you work in it, you don't get to watch as many of the other games as you want to.
Yeah.
With handling a pregame show, and then you got to be on the broadcast during the game, and then a postgame show and press conferences and all that. So, looking forward to John David Baker, our new offense coordinator, came from Ole Miss, and new quarterback. We're going to see who starts, as we've got 2 transfer quarterbacks in. Hopefully, not have one of the most stagnant offenses in the country like we did last year. So I'm just looking forward to good
Jake
football.
Garcia? Is Jake Garcia starting for you guys?
Jake Garcia, who was in the show, quarterback or whatever, and then we got Caton Hauser, who's at Michigan State.
Yeah, let Garcia know that he needs to step up a little bit. So he needs to step up for me.
I'm sure I'll talk to him next week or so. I'll let him know.
Yeah, let him know. But So you're covering the Olympics with your day job, and I feel like it would be a sin to continue this podcast without briefly mentioning that the whole debacle. I know it was an exhibition game, but the U.S. nearly lost to South Sudan in basketball. Philip, what are your takeaways from this? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, South Sudan's the 43rd ranked team in the world, which is not good, right? So it comes back to kind of, Herb Brooks's mindset in the movie Miracle, where he says, the problem is with all-star teams is they rely on the individual's talent, and that, he references the NHL All-Stars losing to the Russians in '79, 7-0 or whatever it was. So, look, that's the problem. These modern NBA players think we're better and they don't play as a team. They go out there and they goof off, and then it almost comes back to bite them in the rear end. They were 43.5 point favorites. And, I can tell you the 92 Dream Team with guys like Jordan and Pippen and Larry Bird and Magic Johnson would have never been in any sort of game with the South Sudan because it was just a different breed of athletes and they cared.
Well,
Um,
yeah, and South Sudan wasn't a country then.
no, that's it. But they would have not lost to whoever the 43rd ranked team in the country was or in the world was at the time. So, just modern day NBA players. What can you say?
Yeah, and do you see them winning gold this year in basketball? Because I'll be honest, some of them European teams, I mean, hell, even the Canadian team, they just look scary. And I
Yeah,
know at the international level, it's just a different brand of basketball.
it is. The good news is some of the teams that have some of the best players in the world didn't qualify for the Olympics because all they have
Oh,
is some of the best players and nobody after them. So I think they do. I don't think it'll be a repeat of Athens in '04. I sure as hell hope not, but we'll see what happens. You're still the favorite. You're still the best team in the world. You still got LeBron and Tatum, and so you'd like to think gold's going to happen, but I'll be honest with you, when the Olympics come around, basketball is never really a sport I've got that much into. I kind of like to watch the sports that you don't watch every day, and I watch a lot of basketball throughout the year, especially college.
and what sports would those be that you'll be looking most at with the Olympics?
Well, I think it was kind of engraved in me, as a kid growing up to like swimming, right? Because of the, what Michael Phelps was able to accomplish, and when you can sit there and watch medal race after medal race after medal race, once they get kind of into the bulk of the swimming, that's a lot of fun. And the U.S. usually is pretty successful. Enjoy the track and field, especially the shorter distance stuff. But sometimes, when you're scrolling through and you come on some of those obscure sports like handball, even though the U.S. did not qualify for the Olympics in handball, which is one of the few sports they've never even medaled in. Those it's pretty cool to watch some of that stuff too. I don't sit there and watch it stem to stern like I would the track or any of that. And I don't know anything about gymnastics, but you can best bet when Simone Biles, the greatest of all time, is competing, I will be tuning into gymnastics as well.
Oh, dude, the things that she can do. What is it? A mat? Would you call it a mat?
Yeah.
Yeah, the things that she can do on a mat is absolutely ridiculous. That is just pure athletic ability. If you had to ask me who the number one athlete in the country is right now, I would say Simone Biles. I mean, there are not people. Philip, do you agree or disagree with that
Yeah,
take?
no, I agree. I agree.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the baseball game.
oh, but yeah, I think Simone Biles is the greatest athlete in America right now. I think there's no denying it, and I have put myself in some of these sports circles, and I tend to get mixed in with a bunch of idiots. And Phil, do you care to explain to the people why Livy Dunn isn't in the Olympics?
Well, I agree with you. Simone Biles is great. She should be the flag bearer. Her, Katie Ledecky. I
I
can't believe
agree.
they're having LeBron do it.
I
Um,
100% because LeBron isn't even the best on the basketball team,
yeah,
in my
yeah.
opinion.
Oh, I will be looking forward to tennis, even though it's a sport we kind of watch year round, just
Mm-hmm.
because it will be Andy Murray's retirement tour. He is officially announced he will be retiring. The three-time major champion, future Hall of Famer, will retire after these Olympics. So, the reason why Olivia Dunn is not on the Olympic team is because 5 people make the Olympic team, and she was the sixth best athlete on Team LSU this year. So, I think everyone ahead of her was American, and even if they weren't, there were some names, Suni Lee and Simone Biles, that were not on LSU's gymnastics team this year. So that's why Livy didn't make it. Livy was not actually even considered. I don't think she went to the trials. Livy is, she's an All American in high school. She's still in the top 1% in the world, crazy good. But when you talk about world class as opposed to really damn good. She's just really damn good, and these are world class.
Yeah, and all that to say, just because you think a girl is attractive does not mean that they get an automatic bid to the Olympics, people. So, it
Oh yeah, because half
casuals.
the people on the women's basketball team would not be on there if it was based off attractiveness.
No, that's facts. But just people out there, they're just idiots, and they're just like, oh, Livy Dunn got snubbed. No, she didn't. Livy Dunn is like you said, she's not world class like that. You know, Simone Biles is light years ahead, and the girls behind Simone are, I mean, they're still behind her, but you know, they're at least competitive to an extent. So,
Yeah,
um,
it's be interesting to see. There's a lot of injuries. This is not the best 5 gymnasts in the
yeah.
world that are on this team. They're a little banged up. I think they can do it, but it's going to be a tough in the all around in the team.
So I'm looking at some of the events on here, but you got stuff like badminton, baseball,
Another
softball, basketball 3x3v3.
first
Like,
time ever for that one. Badminton is a sport, another sport that the U.S. has never medaled in men's or women's.
huh, that's interesting. Um, I mean, just there's a ton on here. What have they done about that damn river? I saw that the president or the mayor or somebody finally jumped in there.
Yeah, I don't know. Supposedly it's gross. I had some friends that were in France last week, but they were not in Paris, so didn't get any inside report. I do know someone who's in Paris right now, covering the Olympics, so probably should. Well, she probably doesn't have it. She probably has a European SIM card, so maybe I can DM her or something because text probably she wouldn't get she's back to the States, but and get official on what it looks like from there from the inside. But I haven't talked to anybody. Supposedly they're going to get it cleaned up, but yeah, I don't know. At the end of the day, you're going to be in a boat coming down it. You just don't want it to look bad on TV as long as the cameras can filter it. I mean, I don't think there's any events in it. Maybe the rowing events. I would guess the rowing events probably wouldn't be right there either, in the heart of the city. So, not really sure.
So I'll ask one more time, and then we'll hop over to NASCAR because I know that's why most people are here. But if you had to pick three events that you just had to watch all the way, what three events would you watch?
I get 3 events or 3 sports.
Three sports. Three sports.
Okay. I'm going to go track and field as one sport.
Okay.
Probably swimming and, yeah, because of Simone gymnastics. I mean, I would prefer to watch beach volleyball, especially the Brazilian men's team because they do that thing where they like serve it 60 feet in the air and it like comes down like a knuckleball and everybody
Jeez.
looks like totally retarded trying to return it. I love watching beach volleyball. But just for this Olympics, I'm probably going to go track and field swimming. Got to watch Katie Ledecky
Yep.
and then gymnastics.
Yeah. So for me, I'm gonna go with swimming. I think that's a good one. Sailing, because I just think that is just the most interesting sport to me. Sailing, how they get those
It is, but
boats.
you got to think that doesn't stretch out over a lot of multiple days. You're hurting yourself there. It might only be
Well,
a 1-2 day event.
I guess you're correct. And then weightlifting. I like to watch weightlifting because I kind of like to see where I stand whenever it comes to world class weightlifter. So I like to see, hey, if I maybe apply myself a little bit more, could how close am I to deadlifting whoever has the highest deadlift in the Olympics? Do you know? Actually, I'm
Not a
gonna look
clue.
that up. Lift in the Olympics. What is the record deadlift in the Olympics? Oh, sorry. There's a clean and jerk. Oh, yeah. It's not telling me. Well, I can't get any of this information fast. But needless to say, I will be doing some research this weekend just to see where I stand with these world class athletes. So that's enough about the other sports of the world. I figured, Philip and I kind of talked a little bit before, but I think first 20 minutes of the podcast, we should talk about some of the things that are going on in the world since, okay, listen, here is a sports brand. So, but let's get into some NASCAR. Obviously, the next 2 weeks are going to be filled with Olympics, so there will be no previews today, and we will also not be doing the backstretch challenge. I'm not making our picks. We'll do that the next episode that we come on, but we have a few topics to discuss and some news. First things first, Cole Custer is going to come up to the Cup Series and race for the Haas factory team. And so, of the three current Haas drivers, this kind of leaves Ryan Preece high and dry. What happens? Well, let's start with this. What do you think of this move with Cole Custer moving up to the Cup Series?
Yeah, this was a classic thing where he went down because the performance wasn't there, but we all know the potential's there. It was just kind of a reset. He was in subpar equipment clearly in his time in the Cup Series, even though we thought at the time that Stewart Haas equipment was good. Turns out it wasn't, and I think it's good. He won championship last year in the Xfinity Series. He's clearly proved that if you're winning an Xfinity championship, you're good enough to be a regular Cup Series driver. I know under the new format. It's not maybe always entirely true, but he was a perennial favorite all year. Like he deserves a second chance. He's a good guy. He runs well. He's pretty consistent at all types of tracks, and I think he's got the right head on his shoulders to be a successful Cup driver. And I think this is something we all knew was coming. At some point when he went down to the Xfinity Series, we knew this wasn't going to be a permanent, return like Michael Annett did at the end of his career, or some of the other guys. But you never know. We thought maybe that Justin Allgaier was going to get a second shot in Cup, and he never officially did. So, of course, he's down there having a great time in the Xfinity Series, being a perennial championship contender every year. But hey, good for him. His dad works at Haas. I guess his dad at one time thought he was going to get laid off because it sounds like they were totally closing their doors. But I think he retained his job, so his dad's very high up there. I don't know his exact title, but I think he's equivalent to like Tim Cindric is at Penske. So, or which would be Jeff Gordon or Chad Knaus's job in Hendrick. So I think his dad's pretty high up, so that helps. But he's definitely got the potential. I think he's a little better driver than Ryan Preece. I don't want to see Preece get kicked totally to the curb, but maybe he goes down to the Xfinity Series and fills one of one open ride, or what could be one of two if Riley Herbst does in fact get that 2311 ride, which it sounds like he is the favorite for. We'll call it the 67 car because that's what their third car number is right now. I don't know the actual number, but for this conversation, let's call it the 67.
So if Cole Custer and Ryan Preece don't kind of do a flip flop with the Haas factory team, who are potential drivers that are going to race for Haas in the Xfinity Series next year?
Well, the name that's been tied to him most over the last few weeks has been Haley Deegan. The team's come out and said that they want to be part of her future and they think that she has a lot of potential in the sport. Sounds like Ford's still behind her. Sounds like the breakup was solely her and AM Racing, not her and Ford. So she seems to be the favorite. But there could very easily be two open seats there. If Priest doesn't get a job and like I said, Herbst moves up, so then you're looking at a slew of drivers. Do you get a free agent from somewhere else? Do you bring a guy up like say a Ben Rhodes who's won two championships in the truck series? Yeah, he's not a Ford guy, even though he does drive for a Ford team right now. As he's more of a Thor Sport guy because he moves with them regardless of what manufacturer they are. But hey, maybe take a shot on a guy like that.
I know that we have kind of gone through a lot of silly season, but are there any spots that if Priest does stay in the Cup Series, their front row would have an open spot because they have Gragson and Todd, and then they have one extra, so that's a potential landing spot for him. 23XI wouldn't be a landing spot for him because, like you said, it'd be Reddick, Bubba Herbst, and then I'm blanking. Who would be? Oh yeah, who would be getting that third one? That third charter.
With Bubba
23XI
Herbst and
front
Tyler
row.
Reddick.
No. 23XI
Oh,
front row
the
and
other one's going to Trackhouse, but
Trackhouse.
that's
Yeah.
that's either going to be Zane Smith or
Yeah.
um, SVG. So
Gotcha. So
either one there.
there's really only one spot, and that's with Front Row Motorsports. The Priest could go if he wants to stay in the Cup Series.
Yeah, I would think so, right? Because it is a Ford team. I'm not really sure how long his deal was with Ford. I think he still has one more year on it. When they signed him as a development driver back a handful of years ago. But the other thing is, technically, I guess the 16 is not locked down for next year over at
Mm-hmm.
Colleague, but it sounds like if things go the way they want it to over at Trackhouse, is that they will have either SVG or Zane run for them, and they will lease one of those two guys to Colleague to run that 16 is what they're hoping. I think actually they're hoping to accrue a second or fourth charter. I don't think that's going to happen. So who knows? And then I guess the only other, and I don't see this happening, is if Brad were to retire and he were to go to the six. But I think, like you said, it's probably going to be um, the 36 car. We'll call it for because that's kind of what their third number is. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll just use that for sake of the conversation, or not running Cup.
Gotcha. And if not Priest, who do you see moving up?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think Harrison Burton will get that ride. Um, but yeah, I mean Ford doesn't really have a farm system right now, so they're gonna have to go out and get somebody. They're gonna go poach, somebody from another manufacturer, a Chandler Smith, a Sam Mayer, a Sammy Smith, somebody like that. Some of those guys like Sam and Sammy, they're both in junior motorsports, and it's a farm team for Hendrick. Well, not really going to be a seat probably opened up at Hendrick in the next
No,
decade. So
no, and especially the way that they're all running
yeah,
right now, which I'll get into a little bit later. But
yeah. So I mean, yeah, so some of those one of those guys can get poached eventually.
yeah,
So I don't know. That'd probably be what it'd be. They'd poach a guy that you were like, well, didn't really see that coming, but it doesn't surprise me because he's so darn good.
yeah,
Sheldon Creed, somebody like that.
yeah. So silly season isn't completely over, but it's getting to the point where it is starting to settle down. I know there was a minute there that we didn't really know what the future of NASCAR, what NASCAR would look like next year, but like we said, Trackhouse kind of know what's happening there. Calling, assuming they keep that ride open and just rotate it, and then it seems like Front Row's the only one that's really going to be consistent next year for someone to take over full time. So the silly season kind of winds down a little bit. We'll keep you guys updated with any news that does come out. And so, going back to a few weeks ago, in the Chicago street race, news came out literally the day after that we had recorded that Bubba Wallace was fined for intentionally running into Alex Bowman under caution at Chicago. I think everyone sitting in this podcast and listening here can agree that that was the right move by NASCAR. And honestly, I never understand why. I mean, are the fines not enough to prevent drivers from doing things that clearly they're going to get penalized for? I mean, Bubba, there's no way that logically in his head he wasn't thinking, all right, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get fined. Like, I just don't see how that doesn't run through somebody's head. So I, I'd like to beg the question, do you think that whenever somebody does something like what Bubba did, do you think there should be heftier penalties?
You know, so some people have said, "Oh, Bubba shouldn't have been fined. They're not treated fairly." Well, when you wreck a guy after the race, window nets have sometimes been taken down. Guys will start unstrapping themselves, so it's a safety violation. So they have to fine him. To your point, NASCAR has always kind of been one where they want the drivers to handle things the way the drivers do. They fine you just enough to where they say, "Oh, we don't condone what he did," and then they let it go.
Yeah.
That's kind of how they've always done it. So I think had he really done something crazy and put Alex in harm's way, it would have been heftier. You can look at suspensions. Guys have been suspended before. Bubba's been suspended before. So, but to your point, heat of the moment, right? Look, I've been teed up before in a basketball game. I've been popped with the UC and in football. So, and hell, that was me and Brock getting in each other's face, and a referee threw a flag on us, which was weird. Um, anyways, so but yeah, I get what you're saying, but couldn't you say that about everything? Well, you knew you taking, if you want to clock the quarterback, you wouldn't have got rough on the passer. You knew you wouldn't have hacked the guy across the chest. It wouldn't have been a flagrant foul. So I think it's the same thing as any other sport. We think because it's NASCAR, hey, they've got more time to think about it.
But
But
do
at
they?
the end of the day, heat of battles, heat of battle. Stuff
See, I
happens.
think one thing with NASCAR that we have seen really over the last 2 years since this next gen car has come out, 2, 3 years, however long that's been, there seems to be just a lot of inconsistency on how they penalize drivers. Is there any fix to this? Because you kind of bring up a good point that NASCAR does like for their drivers to handle things the way that they want to handle them, and to an extent, I think that that's a good thing. You don't want too much overreach so that there's too much control. And am I kind of referring to politics here? Yes, absolutely. But this is a sports podcast. But so to your
You're referring to the politics within sports, not
yeah,
politics.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But so I guess when will we have enough inconsistency from NASCAR? Because you never know. each individual case is looked at differently. Each individual driver is looked at differently. And so, like I said with the Coca-Cola 600 and Kyle Larson, had that not been Kyle Larson, and let's say it was somebody like a Todd Gilliland, would they have given him the same grace as they do Larson? It's just everything is on such a case-to-case basis, and it's never consistent. So, is there a fix to this, or is it even a problem that I should really even be concerned about? Oh, hello.
Uh, I think. I mean, is it a problem? Sure. Is it a problem across every sport? The same, probably, right? So Kareem Hunt punted some girl in the head. He's had a job since. Ray Rice TKO'd a girl in an elevator with one punch to the head. He hasn't had a job since. So is NASCAR? Do they always do things fair? No. Do certain drivers have favorability? We're about to get into that, but we're going to do it more from the race standpoint than the getting in trouble standpoint. No, they're not always officiated the same. Is this happening in Major League Baseball, National Hockey League, the National Football League, and the National Basketball Association? Yes. So it's where we live in. Look, there's wrongs, there's rights, and so two wrongs don't make a right. But sometimes it's just, yeah. I mean, look, you wreck a guy after the race. They've been pretty consistent with some stuff. We say they're inconsistent, and sometimes they have been with the little things, but also um, with the bigger stuff. Overall, they've been darn near consistent. At least with cheating, they're consistent, which is good. Unlike they
There
were
is
back in the
that.
day when they just like made new rules. So yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know.
a real good book on that. Daryl Waltrip wrote a book about cheating and how he would always bend the rules a little bit, and they'd have to make a new rule like the next week. So that if you ever get a chance to read Daryl Waltrip's book, that's a good one.
I didn't
So,
see that because DW always said if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
yep. So let's move this podcast forward, and we're at a good point in the season with the Olympic break coming up. Or the Olympic break is here, where we can take a minute to take a look back on the season and just kind of reflect on what's gone on so far. And we'll kick off this segment with this question right here. But is there anyone so far that has surprised you at all this season?
Yeah, I got two guys, and they're young guys. They're part of that next generation, so not the generation of Bell, Reddick, and Byron, but Ty Gibbs. I expected him to, possibly win a race this year, but I didn't expect him to be as consistent qualifying, especially. But even in his running, just average running position being as high as it is, I'm not shocked by it. But it's look, he's running up there with the big boys pretty consistently, and he's racing them clean. Seems like he's grown up. I think they respect him a lot more. So I've been really proud of Ty. And then my second one is a guy who even though he doesn't have the sexiest numbers until 2 weeks ago when he got wrecked, he had some crazy number of consecutive top 20 finishes, despite being a guy we don't talk much about. He's 20th in points, and that's Todd Gilliland. Even when he came up, everybody was kind of like, is this a front row placeholder? Remember last year, he didn't even run the full season for them. He had to go run a few races for Rick Ware to still stay playoff eligible. And it looked like he was going to get shit canned. And, hey, man, he's looking like a guy who's probably going to finish his career with 4, 5, 6, 7 wins, maybe when it's done. I don't think he's ever going to be a championship contender. I could be wrong. You never know. So I've been in the Cup Series for a handful of years, but a lot better than I expected. So yeah, really, Todd's my big one.
Yeah, I would say I'd have to agree with you on that. Todd has been impressive this season, and given that he's kind of the last man standing over there at front row, it'll be nice to have that level of consistency as we head into this new era of NASCAR. And then with Ty Gibbs, as much as I don't like the guy, I do have to agree with you. He does seem to have grown up a little bit and shows a lot more maturity, not just in interviews, but also on the track. Like you said, he's not dumping people, and it does seem like the rest of the drivers do have some respect for him. He's running consistently, and it's in due time that he's going to get himself one. Looking at the rest of the season, I mean, there's still spots up there. There's still opportunities for him to win. He's put himself in good positions to win. I just think he needs to get that first one under his belt. And once he does, I think the floodgates are going to open. I think right now he's put himself in winning positions, and I think his lack of experience has been kind of what's holding him back. And so, like I said, once that first one hits, I think the floodgates are going to open, and he's going to be I think he's going to be a consistent championship contender, top 8 at least every other year. So that's, I think Ty Gibbs is right where he needs to be. Obviously he's got racing pedigree, and so he's bound to win a championship one day. No disagreements there. Okay.
I mean, you're building off my point.
Yeah.
Go on to your guy you're picking.
So I kind of have a 3-1. I want to go first off with Alex Bowman. After going 2 years without a win, he finally got himself one in Chicago, and right now he has 11 top 10 finishes, just performing astronomically better than he did last season. So that's good to see for him. I know he was kind of on the hot seat in my books come the beginning of the season if things didn't improve, but here he is, I believe. I don't know where he is in the standings right now. I don't have that pulled up in front of me. But, hey, he's in playoffs. He'll be in the running. To build off that, Chase Elliott, he currently sits in second in the regular season standings, which is obviously a significant improvement from last season, given as many races that he missed. But I'm glad that he was able to bounce back. And the fact that he is in second, I think, speaks volumes to his talent. And kind of how this is a 3-1. Hendrick, having 2 drivers that have just made significant improvements from last year, shows why Hendrick is the premier team of NASCAR. I mean, they're dominant for a reason. You go down Bruton Smith Boulevard in Concord, North Carolina, and all you see is Hendrick. There is a reason for that. And I think the fact that they can kind of get their shit together, for lack of better terms, and put together a good season for all of their drivers is, again, it just speaks volumes to the team. And then lastly, I want to recognize Penske. All 3 Penske drivers now are sitting there in the playoffs, and what do my notes say here? All 3 Penske drivers have a playoff spot, and other than Cindric, all of their drivers are in the top 16 in the regular season standings. So Blaney and Logano are in the top 16 just off of points alone. And Cindric sits on the outside, but he has a win, so he'll be in playoffs this year. And last year we did not have that, and Logano seems to be running kind of better. And we had a lot of doubts about Ford heading into the season, but I think they're starting to get their footing underneath them. And Penske was one of the big 3 teams that I thought we would see kind of a downfall. I thought we would see, RFK, maybe take over that perennial Ford team. But Penske's proven right now why they are the best. So this is kind of who surprised me a little bit this season, or at least who I think has surpassed my expectations.
I want to build off a point you made about, Alex and Chase performing better. What makes Hendrick so special is it's not that you've got 2 guys performing better. It's that with those 2 performing better, neither of the other 2 have performed worse.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Bowman and Kyle Larson are right where they were last year. Mm-hmm. So, as far as how much we're expecting them to be a championship.
You mean William Byron? So, you said Alex Bowman.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, William Byron. Sorry, and Kyle Larson are right there at the top like they were last year. I mean, heck, Larson's ran one less race than everybody, and still won championship points. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean that, like you said, that proves why they're the best.
Yeah, so they're not going anywhere anytime soon. But is there anyone else that you can think of that has surpassed your expectations? Maybe even just, I know those were kind of our major ones, but is there anyone on this list that, maybe is just a little bit better than you thought that they would be?
No, I think everybody's right about where I thought. Other than that, I mean, there's some guys who are down. There's going to be some guys on the flip side of this question that I definitely have answers for, but everybody else kind of about what you expected. I guess Rick Ware Racing as a whole has been a little better, but I think that speaks volume to the next gen car, their technical alliance with RFK, and the signing of Justin Haley. So,
yeah, well, I do want to point out that Tyler Reddick, I don't know where he was at last season, but he is currently sitting 3rd in the regular season points. Seventh in the playoff picture. But right now he's sitting in third in regular season points behind Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott. And so I think he has surpassed expectations. Obviously, he's good and has been consistent. But I think for him to be third and have 23 XI, and honestly, for him to be the leading Toyota right now, I mean, he's above Denny Hamlin, Truex, Bell, and Ty Gibbs, who are the next four Toyotas in line for the regular season point standings. But for him to be the number one Toyota above all the Joe Gibbs Racing drivers, I think that's very impressive because 23XI isn't the perennial Toyota team. I think that leap will be made soon, within the next season or two. And I think this is just the tip of the iceberg on that one. But I'm going to say Tyler Reddick has surpassed expectations this season. And my expectations for him they were pretty high. Like I was expecting him to be running around 6th to maybe 8th. No, he's sitting in 3rd. So that's my next guy who maybe isn't as exceeding expectations to the amount that Alex Bowman and Chase Elliott are, but is there.
And nothing, you want to move on to who's on the flip side of that?
Yeah. You start with this one. Who's on the flip side? Who hasn't met your expectations this season?
Well, I'm going to start it with two multi-time champions. Joey Logano has been very inconsistent. He's finally, like you said, broken his way to the top 16 in points, but that win is really the reason he's in the playoffs right now. He's not been good. Kyle Busch has been abysmal.
Mm-hmm.
For that might not be a strong enough word. It's been horrible. They can't run well. I think they had a streak in there a couple weeks back where they had like 3 consecutive 35th place finishes. Yeah, I mean, some of that's due to being caught up in other people's crap, but also sometimes when you're running the back of the field, you're caught up in other people's crap. If you're running out front, you don't get wrecked as easily. It happens, especially at super speedways. We haven't been a super speedway in a while. So Kyle, him, and then I guess my second guy that is probably slightly below where everybody thought, but he's not to the level of some of these other drivers. He's just been consistent last few years. Is Ross Chastain.
I agree with that. Because where's Ross at? I mean, he's 13th in points. I would have expected him to be above, your Brad Keselowski's and Chris Buescher's and I mean even Ty Gibbs of the world. So, I think I agree with that. Kyle Busch, he's been abysmal all season. I can't think of a stronger word than that. It's just like you can, but sitting 18th in the points, just below Chase Briscoe, which I know Briscoe's talented, but I think anybody below a Stuart Haas driver right now probably needs to be looked at.
Yeah,
I think they probably need to be looked at. And I mean, you got Kyle Busch, Cindric, especially racing in the cars that they have. They get taken a look at. So for me, I have two primary.
Well, I was just gonna say the big thing for me with Ross, because I know you mentioned him, or we both mentioned him, but 2 top 5s. Yeah, he's 13th in points, been terrible. 2 top 5s. That's my big thing with him.
Does he have a win this year? He doesn't have a win this year, but his teammate. Yeah, that does kind of surprise me. At this point, I would have thought that Ross would have had one. I mean, Trackhouse. I mean, they're right up there with RFK and 23XI, and yeah, that kind of surprises me that. And I don't have them on my list, but I'll kick off who hasn't met my expectations this season. I'm going to say Trackhouse with 1 win this season. I mean, it is kind of crazy that Suarez has the one win, and Ross does not. Like you said, 2 top 5s, so it's kind of crazy because Ross is generally up there pretty good and well on his. Is he even in the playoff picture right now? Yeah, he's 16th. He's 16th above Bubba Wallace by 7 points. So, yeah, that's a good one. So I'll take Trackhouse. Speaking of Bubba has not met my expectations, though he's had like a relatively decent year and sits right outside of the playoff bubble. Thought that he would have either won a race or at least sitting comfortable in playoff points at this point in the season. I thought he would have somewhat of a breakout season this year, but If he can't make some kind of improvement between now and the end of the year, I would almost put Bubba on the hot seat. Other than Eric Jones, he's the only eligible Toyota driver not above the playoff cut line. So Bubba is not
John Hunter Nemechek.
John Hunter Nemechek, but Bubba is, like I said, he's not quite on the hot seat. But I mean, if he can't get something done this year, you'd have to think that 23XI, given the investments that they're making right now, would have to make at least start considering a change. Especially with Reddick sitting there in third, they've got good equipment. It's not like the equipment they're putting him in is trash, but he's almost got like rookie syndrome where he's good. He just can't close the deal. I mean, that I will say has been his problem. He's been up there. He's led laps. He's been in the top 5, been there in contention to win the race, but he absolutely cannot close the deal. If you could replace Bubba Wallace and with like 20 laps left in every single race, that car would probably have 3 or 4 wins this season. You replace him with someone like a Kyle Larson. He'd probably have 3, 4 wins this year. But he's right there. But he's been right there for 2 years now. And so I think he is well on his way to the hot seat unless he can make some changes.
I'd say he ain't going after this year, but if he doesn't run well next year,
yeah,
it's going to be Heim time. 23-11.
Yeah, I mean in 23-11 they've it's an attractive team to be at. I find it hard to believe. I mean, Denny Hamlin even said when explaining their new facility, they want it to be a place where drivers want to come, or they want to go into. They are looking at it as if they are recruiting these drivers like they're college football athletes, for lack of better terms. But, I mean, if you're not the hottest thing in NASCAR right now, you probably, I say it again, hot seat. I think Bubba's seat is getting a little warm right now. He's got the seat warmers on, and it's only going to get hotter from here if he doesn't do something. Guy number 2 for me, who has not met my expectations this season, and to some, I understand this take comes from me, so take it how you will, but it's Stenhouse. He currently sits 25th in the standings, and though he has found himself in the top 10 in 3 of the last 6 races, this year's just been tough for the 47 team. They finished in the top 20 in just 9 races this year. For reference, at this point of the season last year, they had 16 top 20 finishes, and I would have thought that the Daytona 500 win last year would have helped elevate the team just a little bit. Obviously, I'm going to say hopefully that they get some momentum to close out the year, but Stenhouse is just not meeting expectations this year. I think they have a really smart team over there. I'm not sure if it's the equipment. I'm not sure if it's Stenhouse. I had to listen to the scanners a little bit harder to figure that out, but they're just not getting it done. And so I'm not saying hot seat for Stenhouse. JTG is going to keep him around for as long as they can, but just have not been performing to expectations this year. They got a little bit of momentum going. Hopefully, towards the end of the season, that starts picking up. Get a few more top 10 finishes before the season closes out. Playoffs, obviously, probably not in the ropes for them right now, but never say never. Who knows? I'm not sure how many more super speedway tracks we have, but maybe we have one more. Where is it? Is it Daytona?
One more before the playoffs at Daytona.
Yeah. So
because Atlanta and Talladega are both playoff races this year.
Yeah. So I mean, he could win it at Daytona, but that's about the only other track that I see him winning at. So and punching his way into playoffs. So I mean, I don't see it happening. I think the odds are not in his favor, but like I said, I'd be happy with a few more top 10s this year. So
yeah, it's been, I think last year, they were there was no pressure because they were in, and that allowed them to kind of exceed expectations. So I didn't expect them to be quite as good as last year, but you're right. It's been a little rough.
Yeah. So moving on, we have some big takeaways for the season so far. And for me, this is this may be a hot take here. And I'm coming to an end of an era of this first season of this podcast. I think the top 4 drivers will be our championship 4s. Right now we have Larson, Hamlin, Byron, and Bell. Blaney is the only real threat that I see outside of these 4 that are currently locked into the playoffs via a win. That said, again, it is the end of an era. I am ready to venture away from my take that Chris Buescher will win the championship. I think I've held on to that take for a little too long, but I so in my heart wanted to believe it with every ounce of being that I had. Uh, Again, we've got a few races left. They could pick up momentum. Um, but I think that take to still have it would just kind of just really be for clicks more than anything else. So I so I have to be reasonable here. I am taking Chris Buescher off of my list of drivers that will win the championship this year. I think Larson has got it in the bag. The only other driver, I think Buescher can get past the round of 16, might even get into the round of 8. I think that's a stretch. But I just think the top 5 are light years ahead of anyone not driving a JGR, Hendrick, or Penske car. You could make a case for Tyler Reddick right now, but with him not being a Hendrick, JGR, or Penske driver, that is what turns me off of him right now. But it's possible. So, but yeah, Larson, Hamlin, Byron Bell. I think those are my 4 right now. Those are my locks to win it. Blaney is, he could be thrown in the mix, take one out, and then Reddick, you can make a good case for him too. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to have Blaney not in the conversation. I
yeah,
mean, he could very easily have 4 wins, right?
yeah,
He is a half of an inch and a splash of gas from 4 wins.
mm-hmm.
He's at 2, but he loses the 3-way at Atlanta, and then he runs out of gas in St. Louis. So he's been performing well. But with this new format, there seems like there's always kind of a surprise championship 4 guy. But yeah, I mean him, Reddick, and then like you said, all the guys who've already won 3+ races this year. Bell's been struggling a little bit midsummer, but sometimes that's good. Sometimes that happens to championship
Yeah,
drivers, and then they
you and I
turn
know
it
that a
on when the
little bit of
play.
adversity can turn into. We know it can
Yeah,
turn into something positive. So
yeah,
I'm not too worried
yeah.
about Bell, even if he's in a little
I'm
slump
not.
right
He's
now.
still my championship pick. Gut feeling. He has his breakout year.
Mm-hmm.
I think he wins a couple playoff races and wins championship. Ends up with 6 or 7 wins.
Yeah. So, what are your big takeaways this year?
Um, I think the big takeaway for me is that we've finally settled in to the Gen 7 car. I think when we have, we're sitting here and we could technically we're going to preview this kind of our next episode. Where could if we end up with 17 plus winners, where does that come from? We're not at all right now that there's already been 12 winners or whatever. We know that's the new norm because of this car. I think the drivers are finally adapting to this car. Um, so that's kind of the on the track thing. Off the track, the silly season's been nuts. Maybe there hasn't been the blockbuster names that there's been in the past with, Kyle Busch from a couple years back. But, it's going to be sad to see MTJ retire. Glad to hear that he's still going to run some part time stuff and be around the sport. Um, but yeah, this whole Haas thing's weird, and it's kind of shaking up those B tier teams, and it's really kind of seeing who the A tier teams think can be their next level of guys with signing guys like Chase Briscoe and Corey LaJoy leaving. Uh, isn't he? No, he's not leaving. Sorry. Um, but with Michael McDowell leaving to go join Corey LaJoy and Spire, and it's interesting. And then he's one thing we didn't mention is Corey LaJoy's new crew chief for next year is going to be why am I drawing a blank on his name right now? Rodney Childers, who is the championship winning crew chief with Kevin Harvick and has been with Josh Berry this year in the 4. But that's big that they got that signing. So uh,
Hey, maybe he can finally get a
NASCAR's
win.
maybe NASCAR's got a lot of weird stuff going on, but I think it's about to settle down. And we're really just going to get into the grind
Mm-hmm.
here the next few seasons of here's our drivers. Obviously, have a few guys retiring. You'll have a silly season every year, but we know who the new championship contenders are. Their names are Larson, Elliott, Byron, Blaney, Reddick, Seabell. So, um, we'll see. But I think we're in a new era of NASCAR, both with the car and with the drivers, and I think the future is bright for the sport.
I think so too, for sure. So before we move on to Pocono and Indy, and we'll fly by these because we are almost at an hour. Philip, you don't have to comment on this, but I did see TikTok from another podcast. I believe it's the Rubbin' Is Racing podcast over at Barstool Sports. They had found out that Daniel Suarez is marrying the sister of Max Verstappen's girlfriend, Julia Paquette. So little fun tidbit of information there for you.
Sounds like those girls like to go fast.
Yeah.
And the key to their heart must be through the gas pedal.
Yep, and I believe they're Brazilian, if I remember that correctly. So, you cool. So kind of
A lot of great drivers have come out of Brazil.
Yep.
Tony Kanaan, guys like that.
So there you go. So
Elio.
who knows? Maybe Daniel Suarez has a kid that just likes to go fast. It's the next rendition of Ricky Bobby. All right, let's get into some Pocono and some Indy. Well, again, like I said, we'll fly through this. Ryan Blaney, whose first Cup Series win was at Pocono, beat Denny Hamlin, who has the most wins at Pocono, to take home his second win of the season. Like you said, Philip, he could have 4 wins, but this is his second. Because of this win, he is now one of 5 drivers with multiple wins. What is your takeaway from Pocono? What did you notice? What was interesting? Oh, there you go. You got that, dude. You were overwhelming me with questions. Look in your eyes.
I don't remember Pocono. It was like 9
I
days
know
ago.
it was so far away.
No. Yeah, no, it was good. It was good to see the strategy. It was good to see not a lot of tire fall off, which allowed that different strategy. This is back to back weeks now, and just kind of segueing into Indy that, it's really a lot of focus on the crew chiefs. And I liked that. Pocono can produce some boring races. Overall, for a Pocono race, it wasn't that boring. It was pretty racy at the front, and it was all about how he took those corners and carried momentum down the straightaway, which it's always been that way. But they were able to pass, something they've been able to do better in the Gen 7 car than past cars. And hey, thought it was good. Congrats to Ryan to finally officially lock himself into the playoffs there with 2 wins. Because, if you get 1 and there's 17 winners, somebody gets left out. He was good on points anyways. But
so good. It's actually, you bring up a good point. The Pocono race was a good one for crew chiefs to kind of show their skill and how their game plans worked out better. So let me ask you this: would you rather have a race that is very racy all the way through, or would you rather have a race where the crew chiefs have to do a lot of thinking all the way through? So one or the other.
I mean, one race good as done. The driver wins the championship, not the crew chief. I'll take the driver.
Okay.
I want 36 races of parity and differentness, and I want the crew chiefs to be on show some races. I want the equipment to be on show some races. I want the driver. And then sometimes we just like that thing called sure dumb luck, and we get that at Atlanta, Daytona, and Talladega. So I like the balance, but give me the driver. At the end of the day, the driver wins the championship.
There you go. So moving on to Indianapolis, Kyle Larson wins, at the Brickyard, giving him his 4th win of the season. Brian Keselowski ran out of gas, allowing for Larson to take that inside lane on the front row. Blaney was on the top row and was not pleased with this move. Philip, do you think the NASCAR should have intervened with this move, despite it technically being within the rules? Do you think that this needs to be a change? Because Blaney seems to think that it was unfair that Larson got to take advantage of that inside line because Brad Keselowski ran out of gas right before they went green for that last little bit.
Jonathan Hassler knew what Brad's fuel situation was. You don't know when he's going to run out, but the hard part about that is you go too many more laps and then Ryan's going to run out of gas and a couple other guys. We would have had to go 2 more laps to re-choose. You would have not been able to re-choose then to get single file and time to choose. So, I mean, an extra 2 laps around Indy, you're talking another couple, 3-4 minutes.
Yeah, no kidding.
Like, this doesn't happen often. It really doesn't. It happens it happens every week, right? With drivers going to the back. And unlike the NASCAR video games where if you're 21st and one guy goes to the back, you bump up to 20th. No, you just bump up to 19th. You just, the whole line moves up. It's how it's always been. And this happens so seldomly now. The other thing is he could have went. He was the control car. He's got to know the rules. And look, I know it's tough in the heat of the moment, but his spotter and his crew chief need to be in his ear saying, "Hey, you're now the control car. Let's throw a curveball here at Kyle." They didn't. The flag man was pretty much the one who started it. Kyle got the run down into 1. Is what it is. They had another restart after that. They still didn't win that restart. So this is disappointing. It's frustrating. I get it. I mean, Ryan's got every right to be pissed off the situation. Um, but hey, I think there was something way more in this race that I was mad about with NASCAR than that. So that's probably our next conversation.
Yeah, go for it. What are you more mad at?
Yeah, I mean, so the end of NASCAR races has always been officiated different than the middle of NASCAR races or the beginning. So Ryan Preece's spin there
Oh
any
yeah.
other time in the
Mm-hmm.
race is caution right
Yes.
off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
I am okay because we don't want to just keep re-racking, especially short on fuel. We want to try to just end the race whenever time comes. Ryan hit the wall. He backed up. He tried to refire it, and it went and it stalled. When it stalled, we knew he was done.
Mm-hmm.
They should have thrown the caution then. The drivers were still coming out of turn four. The leaders were when that happened. I firmly believe give him every chance to refire and see if he can get going. If this happened in turn three and he was still refiring and they had already crossed start finish line as he's in the process of doing it, sorry. There was a good 4, 5, 6 seconds from when he got done trying to refire and gave up to when the start finish line was crossed. There should have been another yellow. And then obviously once they get back around to turn two, you have to throw the caution. You have a sitting duck car a couple years ago in a truck race that's happened with Spencer Boyd. He was sitting down at the bottom of the apron. There was another wreck. He got hit. He got injured. We can't have that. So right to throw the caution, bad on timing. And again, everybody's saying another win for the Golden Boy
Hmm.
and for Kyle Larson. And you can't help but wonder, if that's somebody else leading the race that's not Kyle Larson or you kind of mentioned earlier in the episode, or is NASCAR officiating different drivers differently?
Mm-hmm.
Um, maybe. I don't know. It was, that HMS is stickers on the side of the car, and you're going to get a little favoritism. And it's coming from a guy who pulls for the Hendrick Motorsports guys and had Kyle Larson in the race pool, so I won some money on it. So trust me, I was content with the win. Won us a fantasy week too. So yeah, it worked out good for me, but still. Non-bias, you gotta throw that caution earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's keep this podcast moving along. We'll get into some tipping your cap and shaking your head. But before we do that, enjoy the southern charm of Bojangles, where every bite takes you on a journey to the heart of Carolina comfort food. Founded in 1977, Bojangles has been serving up mouth-watering chicken, flaky biscuits, and sound like Joe Biden. Refreshing iced tea with the side of warm smiles for over 45 years. Want to give a huge shout out to the Charlottesville, Winchester, Harrisonburg, and Stanton Bojangles stores up in Virginia for sponsoring the 2024 Bojangles Perfect Week Challenge. Visit oklistenhere.com today for more information. Philip, over the last 2 weeks, we've had a lot to think of. Who are you tipping your cap to, and who are you shaking your head at?
I'm gonna go kind of a combo tip and cap, just NASCAR, the engineers, everybody who helped develop this Gen 7 car. It really looked good the last 2 weeks. Um, Even looked good on the road course when it was dry. So, great job to do that and to make the decision to bring the Brickyard back. It truly is a crown jewel. It was a special event. Was happy to see him running in Indianapolis, and it's where auto racing belongs, and it's where the Cup Series belongs, on the oval, not on the road course.
Yep, and I'm going to piggyback off of that. And my tip in my cap this week is NASCAR, simply because they brought it back to Indy. I think there's no reason it should have left the Indy Oval. There were some parts of the race that were a little bit boring to me, but at the end of the day, Indy is Indy, and it is unique, and it is a crown jewel of NASCAR. And so I think to take it off of the Oval, I think is a sin. Whoever made that decision needs to be booted. Um, but I'm going to tip my cap to NASCAR and Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which I will actually be passing by and seeing for the first time next week as my wife and I head up to Michigan for a last hoorah before Miss Brooklyn Rose comes along. But Philip, who are you shaking
There
your
you go.
head to?
I can't really think of anybody else right now, so kind of piggybacking off my point from 2 points ago, race control and how they handled the end of the race. Not how they handled Brad running out of gas, but how they handled the caution.
Yeah. And for me, I guess I will. I don't know, because I didn't have anyone necessarily that I wanted to shake my head at. Um, I guess I'll go with Ryan Blaney. Like you said, maybe know the rules in that situation, know what you can and cannot do. Um, And I mean, he was in a winning position. He had a chance to. I think his emotions got to him way too much. And you're really not going to win when you have negative emotions like that. So I'll shake my head to Ryan Blaney for the time being. So with that being said, we are not going, like we said, we're not going to preview any races this week. I mean, hell, we're already at an hour and 5 minutes. But we will do that on the next episode with the Olympic break. We just want to have a little more recency. Backstretch challenge, we will also not be picking, but here are the results from last week. I had Hamlin, Elliott, Reddick, Byron, and Wallace in my garage. Philip, you had Larson, Truex, Bell, Busch, and Gibbs, who was in your garage. And I won 5.25 to 15. And although I won, Philip, you still lead the Backstretch Challenge 12, 7, and 1. So we'll make our picks, like I said, next episode for Richmond. But we will finish out, we'll round out this podcast with, Philip, do you have weekly trivia?
Yeah, I came up with a couple, and I can kind of wing a third.
All right, go for it. Go hit me with something.
I want to confirm the year on my question here.
Okay.
Do you already have something typed up? Because if you do, you can go first.
I did, but it deleted. Hang on.
All right. So, when Kyle Larson won at the Brickyard 400, he joined a long list of Hendrick Motorsports drivers to do so, most recently coming in 2017. Which driver won the Brickyard 400 for Hendrick Motorsports 7 years ago in 2017? Most recent until this past week.
2017. So Johnson was still running. Dale was still running, was he not?
Yep.
Gordon wasn't still running, was he?
No, I think that might have been Chase's first year.
Okay.
Don't quote me.
I'm just gonna say Jimmy Johnson. If not Jimmy Johnson, then it's the last guy that I can't think of.
It might be the last guy you can't think of. It is Casey Kane.
Oh, I forget that he. Because didn't he drive for
driving the 5 car?
Who did he drive for before in the 9?
Evernham.
Yeah, see, I knew Casey Kane drove for Hendrick, but I just wouldn't have ever thought that. So Casey Kane.
I didn't see it. I saw a picture last night on Twitter. It said it was here are your last 2 Hendrick Motorsports Brickyard 400 winners. It was a picture of like the Chili Bowl in the early 2000s, and Casey Kane looks young, and Kyle Larson's a little kid.
Jeez. All right, Philip. Let's see. Oh, we're going to stick with the Olympics, since I know you do like the Olympics a good bit. We're going to go back to the Oh, shit, that was my question. Actually, no, it wasn't. Okay, when did the United States boycott the Summer Olympics, and where were the Olympics hosted in that year? I'll give you a hint. It happened in the 1900s.
It was 1980.
Yes.
It was 1980. It was somewhere in Russia.
Yes.
Carter announced that we were boycotting about 2 weeks before the Winter Games, and they were very worried that they would not come here. And good thing they did. Otherwise, we would have not had the Miracle on Ice. But it was 1980. I can't remember what city it was, but it was in Russia.
Sorry, my dog is like scratching her ear, and it's just banging up on my door. But yes, you are correct. All right. What's your second question for me?
Sticking with the Olympics. In 1996, what American city had a bombing at the Olympics?
In what year?
1996.
Was it Atlanta? Was it not?
Yep. It was Atlanta.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, were the Olympics in any other city? I mean, I know nowadays they're in a bunch of different cities, but were the Olympics in any other city that year, or was it all in Atlanta?
It was on. I mean, they kind of they do like dual bit. I mean, like winter a lot of times it's not in the main city.
Yeah.
The figure skating and crap is, but they don't have mountains for skiing.
Yeah.
But yeah, summer it's relatively one city.
Gotcha. All right. I know that it's Summer Olympics that are coming up, but I am going to go shift over to the Winter Olympics for this question. Who is the first American to win a medal in 6 different Winter Olympics? And I will give you a hint. It's someone that I know enough to where if
Yeah.
you like, his name is Epic.
Yeah. Because you're saying epic, it's making me lean Sean White, but I think it's Apollo Ono.
You are correct. It is Apollo Ono in short track speed skating. I remember watching him as a
Because
kid.
1 year, yeah, 1 year in Sochi in 14, uh, White didn't medal. He finished fourth, so that's why I was like, I feel like it's Ono.
Yep. All right. What is your?
He should have one more medal. He got robbed in the I can't remember what distance in Vancouver in 2010 when
I
the judges
remember
said he
that.
pushed the guy
I
down.
remember that. Yep.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
All right. Is this your third question? This is your third.
yeah.
All
It
right.
is. I
What's
got
your
to come
third?
up with one. Crap. I got to come up with one.
Oh,
Dang
I
it.
got a good one for you next.
Okay, you can come to me back to back, and
All
I'll
right.
think of one.
You ready for it? Going back to the
Yep.
Summer Olympics. What
Okay.
American athlete won a gold medal in the decathlon in the 1976 Montreal Olympics?
Do you want his past name or her current name?
I said, which American athlete won a gold medal in the decathlon?
All right, so past tense. So we're gonna go Bruce Jenner.
You would be correct.
Alrighty. Okay, I got one. What was what did the women's gymnastics team call themselves when they went to Beijing in 2008?
Oh. Ah. In Beijing in 2008? I'm not
Yep.
I'm not even gonna be able to tell you. I have no idea.
It would have been the Fab Five.
That name's already taken. That name was already taken, Philip. But whatever.
By who? Oh,
Michigan.
by the
Michigan.
Michigan
Yeah,
basketball
Michigan
team. Yeah.
basketball team.
So they were the Fab Five, and then in 2012 it was the Fierce Five, and then in 2016 it was the Final Five.
So what are they this year? Or what were they in
I
2020?
don't know because the Final Five was a
Wait,
thing
did we
because
have
the
Olympics
man
in
and
2020?
the husband and
Did
wife
we have Olympics in 20?
they got pushed back to 21
Okay, where were they? I don't even remember.
Tokyo.
Okay. What are they called this year then? Do we
I
know?
don't know. I don't know if they came up with one in 21. It was just I think it's just like Simone's final run,
Hmm.
but the Final Five was because the husband and wife who had coached for so long were retiring
Yeah.
after the 16 games in Rio. So that's where Final Five
Oh,
came from. So
here's a good trivia question for you, just because it's cool. What NFL team does Simone Biles' husband play for?
I don't know who she's married to.
Well, I'll give you an answer. It is the Chicago Bears.
I was going to say, give me the name of the player, and I'll tell you who he
I
plays
don't
for.
even know his name. I just know he plays for the Bears.
Oh, well, damn.
Yep. Goes to show how much I know.
DJ Moore.
Something like that. But, all right. Well, this has been episode 30 of the OK Listening Roundtable. If you're still listening or watching at this point, we appreciate you guys for sticking around. We will see you guys in 2 weeks to then preview Richmond and Michigan. And maybe we'll talk a little Olympics before we get started with NASCAR. But appreciate you guys for sticking around, and we will see you on the next one.